Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Here we are on episode 48, The Legacy of the Blue Elephant Art Center. I have three incredible guests. I have Brian Slagle, Tony Mell, and Lauren LaRocca. I hope that's right. If not, she'll correct it. We're going to have a conversation about a topic and a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, and one that is way outside of our typical scope of the conspiracy theories. In 1998, I was a member of the Blue Elephant Art Center in Frederick, Maryland. I spent 5 incredible years with the Blue Elephant from 98 to 2003. I had 2 reviews in the Washington Post. That space, after 30 years, is going to be closed. So I'm here with some incredible artists and some people involved with the space. And we're hoping to very much hear about what the arts community wants to do after Blue Elephant and talk about some of the last events that are coming up. So I'm going to pitch to each of my in-studio guests. I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself and say a little bit about your role. So I'll go this way.
Hi, I'm going to start by saying thanks, Don. This is a cool opportunity. I'm glad that we can fit into the category of conspiracy theory somehow.
Well, look, I wanted to say this too, right? If I could do this show, you know me, if I could do this show in William Burroughs' voice, it would be ideal. But, to say that my love of conspiracy started at Blue Elephant is an understatement. I'm sorry to interrupt
That's all right. No, I appreciate being here. My role in the Blue Elephant is started in 1997. I was returning home from college in Georgia, and my brother had told me about this project he had been working on with Becky Griffin, who we lovingly referred to as Mom Beck over the years. She had a vision of this art space in a run-down old building. My brother had stepped in to help her kind of structure the upstairs, which at that time is what was known as the Blue Elephant. So from the beginning, I was there to help get it going, and it's been an amazing. I had a 10-year stint there from 2007 to 2017, and it's very cool and amazing that it stood the test of time, and it's sad to see it closing down.
Yeah. Tony, same. Introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do with Blue Elephant now.
Yeah, I'm Tony Mell. I'm out of you guys. I'm a newer member. I've only been there since 2014, so I'm currently a working artist there, and I think my role there is to try to generate a connection to community, and carry on the legacy of the Blue Elephant. It's such a unique space. It's really the last bohemian artist building that exists, especially in Frederick. So just trying to continue that. Standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Nick, will you go ahead and bring up our first graphic? This is from the Frederick News Post, who's done a really great job of covering this story in Frederick, Maryland. This was from early, I think it was late this winter, Endangered Blue Elephant. It's got Paul Tooley, who was an original member. He's been there all these years. Yeah. And the News Post has done a wonderful job of following about the closing of Blue Elephant. You can go ahead and bring that down, Nick. As I was expressing to both of you gentlemen, one of my great fears is that a year after Blue Elephant is closed, that the momentum is lost and the space itself is forgotten about. And for me, I look at this as 30 years of an intellectual reservoir, an archive that's going to be lost. If I ask each one of you to express to our audience, what do you see being lost by the closing of the Blue Elephant?
I guess I'll start. I'm not sure if lost is the term I would use.
Okay.
I mean, it's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Things come and go. we came in like artists do in a neighborhood that wasn't super thriving at the moment, and a lot of people have been talking about how the condos are coming and pushing out the artists, and that's true and that sucks, but I want to acknowledge that the artists are part of that gentrification cycle. We kind of start it, so just to put that out there, and you know, it's time for a new wave of energy, and I'm not sure what that'll look like. I know
Right.
I was having a conversation with Dylan, who is also a freelance writer for the FMP, yesterday up at the Blue Elephant. We talked for a couple hours up there. It was a really great conversation, and he asked me what do I see that's kind of missing in the Frederick art scene currently, and I said young people.
Yeah.
And Tony and I were talking on the way here about the freedom we had when we were starting the Blue Elephant. We were young. We didn't have as many responsibilities, but we also had a space that was affordable. We were charged $900 for that entire upstairs space for the 10 years that I was there. So we had the ability to be creative and take risks and not be tethered to an expensive rent. So that's kind of hard to see happening again with youth creating their own space. But Dylan pointed out to me, and Roy Gim, who's also a writer at the Frederick Post, are following the music scene. And apparently there's a really robust underground music scene where the youth is finding different expressive avenues in Frederick that I didn't know a lot about, and I'm curious to see what they're doing.
No, that's and one of the conversations I was actually having with Lauren was she was asking, we did a special 40 years of the Skeptics with Andy McCutcheon and Stephen Blickenstaff. We also did a wonderful recording on the history of Frederick's underground music scene. And Andy McCutcheon is mom of Becky. Becky Griffin was Becky McCutcheon. So it's Andy's aunt. And I've always believed that, you know, Becky was able to see how much her children and that, you know, her family loved art, and that helped to inspire the Blue Elephant. But I always see the music and art scene as symbiotic, as connected. Tony, downstairs you were sharing about, and again with our audience, please, how many artists are going to be directly affected by the closure of the Blue Elephant, including Noma? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, like Brian said, you know, there are seasons to things, and I don't think anyone is going to be able to reproduce the Blue Elephant. It's such a unique and special place. But you know, with us in Noma, there's probably 50 people that will be displaced. You know, and then if you look at it on the outside, you know, we're right next to TAG, so they're going to be impacted by that.
Yeah.
And we have a frame shop across the street. He's going to be impacted. And you know, as a community as a whole, you know, it's artists are really important to community, you know, and they bring a lot to the community, not only through art and creativity, but also economically. You know, we're all working artists. We all sell work, and it's going to be a big impact. And I think it's going to look a lot different. I think all of us are trying to visualize what that's going to look like. I know as a group, we have a really great group of artists right now, and like a really close group again, that we've kind of built over the last year or so. We have a lot of new members come in. We do struggle with younger people, but we are trying to do some mentorship with some younger people that have been coming through. And I've sponsored an art show with Tori in Washington, you know, and just to try to bring other community in, you know, and try to really be active. But moving forward, you know, it's going to look totally different, and I don't know what that looks like. We may be spread out, but we all would like to stay together as a group. But as Brian said, it's economically, and you know, in downtown Frederick, it's hard to find a space that's affordable for all of us. You know, and that's what makes the Blue Elephant so special. It's a place that you can work, and it doesn't cost $1 million to work there. So.
I was thinking, you know, some of the things, in my view, having been an artist in Frederick in the 90s, that really made Blue Elephant unique for its time it was really an artist-controlled environment, right?
Correct.
We didn't have to answer to, any state authority, any funding agency or anything like that. So we were at least able to be devoid of some of the politics that you have to deal with, like say at the Delaplane Visual Arts Center. We were able to do work that, was challenging. And I think about some of the stuff that we did back then, and it seemed so radical then, but now it would be, I don't even know if it would have that same impact. One of the things that we wanted to do with this show was to promote some of the last events that are going on at Blue Elephant. We're going to encourage everyone to do a day trip to Frederick, Maryland on September 5th. There's some incredible exhibitions going on, and I thought we would talk a little bit about them. So, Nick, will you go ahead and pull up our next graphic? This is about an exhibition called the Crib Exhibition. Brian, why don't you talk a little bit about this one? And this one is at the Delaplane Visual Arts Center, and go over the opening and the times like that. Nick, if you don't mind, scroll through that a little bit. Brian?
Okay, yeah, this is an interesting show. I'm proud to be accepted in. I believe the origin of these cribs was a show that NOMA artist Jim Roberts might have had in a thesis show or something. I kind of vague on where it all came from, but he presented an idea to the Delaplane to curate a show, giving artists a crib and asking them to come up with a design. And the theme is around mental health. Mm-hmm. And the picture you see there is Stephen Dobbins' work, who I work closely with artistically and employed with for a while. And I also have a piece in this show. I'm excited to see it in action, and this will be coming up September 5th. Yeah.
Saturday, September the 5th. You can go ahead and close that one out, Nick. That's Crib Exhibition. And did I read that correctly? 17 artists are involved in that?
I hadn't seen the final count, but it seemed like there's quite a bit.
And when you say crib, we're talking about literally baby cribs, or a crib, like this idea of a baby crib.
They're all one style.
Fascinating.
Metal crib. And they're just basic stripped down cribs, and I'm very curious to see what comes out of this.
I was thinking that decayed baby, that seems for 30 years there seems to be lots of decayed babies that show up in Blue Elephant artwork. I remember a couple images similar to that. That sounds really fascinating, and Dobbins is part of that exhibition as well. Steve Dobbins is that was his work.
That was his
awesome
picture there. Yeah.
And also, we got one other show we want to plug at the Delaplane that day. Nick, you want to bring it up? Our friend Rhonda Smith she's opening at the Delaplane Visual Arts Center, 40 South Carroll Street, Frederick, Maryland. Same day, Saturday, October 5th. A great day trip to Frederick. And if you want to... September 5th. What'd I say, October? I'm sorry. And let's take a look at her image. We'll take a look at the... Yeah. Always. Rhonda, I know she was actually one of my art teachers at Shepherd, and I know as long as Blue Elephant existed back in '98 that, her students exhibited there. We exhibited Rhonda's work. She's a big part of the Artist Gallery right across the street from you guys. She's an active member of the Artist Gallery. So I think she has a lot of former students, friends, and fans that'll be at that opening. And hopefully they'll take a look at the crib, too. Go ahead and close that. And then we'll hit the really big one. This is from the NOMA Gallery Post. You want to bring up our next still? There it is. NOMA, one of the final shows at the Blue Elephant, the upstairs gallery. Brian, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about the repetition, ruin, and reconstruction show that you have going on at Blue Elephant?
Will do. So this show is Stephen Dobbin, Jeff Bolander, and myself. We've been looking to have an exhibition together for around a year. We've shopped around different places, and fortunately, serendipitously, we ended up at the Blue Elephant.
I've been begging them to try to get a show together. Ryan's like, we'll see.
We'll see. No, it came together perfectly. It's fitting for me. It's like a bittersweet thing to be able to show here one last time. And Jeff and I actually were in a show together a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago at MICA. It was the International Collage Society, which I joined so I could enter this show. And it was a cool show. My piece was sort of collage. I kind of pushed the boundaries there, but Jeff actually won a nice award at that show for his piece. And so I've known Jeff for years through the Blue Elephant, and I have lots of connections with Stephen Dobbin and through the early days of the Blue Elephant. So it's a fitting show, I think, for us, for Steve, for Jeff, and I think it worked out great that it's going to happen, and I can't wait to get some new work up there.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. I'm definitely going to come over. Tony, can you tell us what all you guys have planned for the Saturday, September the 5th, and any events that you want to talk about that are going on in September?
Yeah, right now we'll obviously host these guys. We'll have open studios, and we'll have 2 shows in our galleries there of the resident artists. So.
And Noma Gallery will also
in Noma we'll have a new show there.
Yeah, we'll be open that day. Let's take a look at our second. This is from your invitation, a little bit about the show. Anything you want to read off of there or say?
I don't have glasses on, so there's no way I can read that, but feel free.
Yeah. We've got it up there, so if you can pause it for a minute. I always loved the Blue Elephant graphic. That one's been around for such an incredibly long period of time.
Yeah, we had to research. I had to go through a bin to find a copy of something with that. Jeff Bolander said, I believe it was like a typewriter font, and Jeff's really good with he's a graphic designer, so I sent him a screenshot of that from a postcard, and he recreated it. So I'm glad we got the original back.
Yeah, me too. I love that.
I love the fact that these guys are showing there. It's like they're coming home, and one of the ideas that I had was to have sort of an alumni show before we go out. I'd love to have you guys part of that, if we can put something together with everyone. Maybe you have some connections that you can put a shout out to everybody. We can come up with a date to do that.
We'll see this episode, and I think we'll get a lot of interest. So this brings us to one of the things I wanted to do with this before we get into a little bit more about Blue Elephant history and what you guys are advocating for. I'm going to start with you. Tony, tell me a little bit about your personal artwork and a little bit about your history as an artist.
Where do you want to start?
Whatever you want to share.
Yeah. No, like I said, I've been with the Blue Elephant since 2014. I'm a painter.
You're a painter.
Got my master's, MFA. I've been in the Academy of Fine Arts in Bratislava, former Czechoslovakia.
You went to school in Czechoslovakia. One more time.
Went there for a year.
You went to school in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, the former Czechoslovakia is now separate. But
yeah.
And I got my master's at Indiana State in painting, and came home. I'm from Frederick originally, and came home and stalked the Blue Elephant and finally got a studio there. And been there since, like I said, 2014 is when I came.
Who are some of your heroes? Like what painters? What painters are you going to tell me are your stepping stones and your influences?
Probably a lot of the Italian guys like Mimo Palladino, Louise Bourgeois. I like the French artist. She's I don't know, there's a lot. David Solly, I like a lot.
Yeah, no.
A bunch. I don't even know where to start.
Czechoslovakia, is it Jan Svankmajer? Are you familiar with Jan? He an animator, incredible animator, Czechoslovakian animator. It was incredible stuff.
It was an extremely exciting time. I went there after, a couple months after the Velvet Revolution, so it was 1990 in January, and it was such a celebration, it's like the perfect time to be there. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Brian, same question to you. Let's talk a little bit about your artwork. And I guess my question to both of you is, how does art start for you? Like, how do you end up at Savannah?
My grandfather was an architect and gemsmith and just overall creative. I remember my first interactions with that kind of thing was sitting in his workshop, and he'd be polishing gems, and I was just fascinated by, his work and learning about some of the things he's designed in DC, and he had a pretty cool career, and there's still some stuff around that we're trying to research. But I think in high school I got into art, and academically I wasn't the best, and art was a great path for me. So I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, and had a great time there. They had sports, and it allowed me to find my kind of style, which is not really traditional. I have a degree in painting. I don't do a lot of technically painting per se. I use more of a material aspect. In one of the articles that you mentioned in the Washington Post, Michael O'Sullivan described me as a true bricolier, which I didn't know. Luckily, we had Mike Mendez, who's a professor at Shepherd, who explained to me that it was a French term that came from bric-a-brac, and didn't mean a lot to me at that point. But over the years, it's kind of become this more of like way of life, and this bricolage style of living and creating and spirituality, and I don't know, I'm kind of leaning into this, and this show for me is really cool because the Blue Elephant allowed us to make art just to make art. We weren't trying to sell art. We liked selling art. We sold some art, but we could create to create. And the pieces working on for the show are definitely that. They're large scale, kinetic works that are not going to sell, but it's going to feel really cool to see those in this space, and kind of like you said, a homecoming. And I believe Steven's working on some new pieces that it's kind of like a testing ground to get them on these big walls. There's not a lot of big walls in Frederick where you can just put up interesting stuff. So yeah, I've kind of done a lot of things in my life work-wise, and my goal has always been to try to make a living making things. That always doesn't always work out, but I've been through different phases where I've making these seed bomb products and making jewelry and doing custom interiors, and so yeah, art it's kind of a thing I can't not do, I believe.
Yeah, no.
Steven just recently retired, and he kept telling me the last few years as we're working together, I'm going to have one last show. I'm like, that's not possible. You can't stop making art.
The one thing I think about back in the day in the 90s with you and your artwork, same with Jason, was this, and I think a lot of your art could become like from necessity, but you were way into found objects. You guys were always going and scavenging and coming out with these really incredible things. I always thought part of that was economic, but how they ended up, the final presentation was always fascinating. Let's talk a little bit, and we'll get right back to Tony, but with that found object stuff and how you guys actually designed some of the space, because it's there in those steps. And on the show we did with Andrea McCluskey and with Ananda, they talked about just how the Blue Elephant itself was a work of art. So what were some of your thoughts when you guys were doing the renovation of Blue Elephant?
Yeah, so that was amazing. When I got back to Frederick from Georgia, a U-Haul truck and a bunch of stuff packed in there, and kind of moved in upstairs for a few weeks. And they were just starting, Kevin and Becky were collaborating to build the space out, so we were drywalling, learning how to do metal studs, and then there was this opportunity, these blank walls and areas where we had free range to just kind of make it what we made it, and it was awesome. There were no rules, so we used lots of barnwood and found objects, and there's in a staircase to the third floor loft area, there's a step that has all these little mementos, and it's like a picture of someone's habit that had worked there for 30 years, and these things had slid behind a wall. So I pulled this wall off, and there's cigarette butts and matches and a set of keys and X-Lax packages. So we collaged that into, a little frame behind glass history piece. So that was very exciting.
Yeah.
And we were there the other day, and the artists that are currently there, like, you guys can come back and take some of this stuff with you. So a couple items I'd like to grab out of there.
Yeah.
But it was very, we had freedom to do what we were doing with that. And at the same time, we were renovating. Another part of this story was there was a restaurant downtown called the Alpenhof.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of tried to rebrand themselves. So they called it Circa. And they let Jason and Kevin and I come in when they were closed at night and renovate this place. And it was really cool. Once again, we had free range, so we had found sticks, and I remember painting latex on walls, and we had baby dolls, and
Yeah.
it turned into like a art exhibition disguised as a bar.
Yeah.
And they kind of closed down right as we opened, so it was kind of a foreshadowing of the Blue Elephant in a bar scene.
I remember when you guys were doing that Alpenhof project, and you guys were all obsessed with this book called The Crossing, right? Cormac McCarthy. I tried to read that fucking book. I got 100 pages into it. I couldn't get any further.
Yeah.
Tony, I want to talk about. Let's talk about some of the artists that who are some of your favorite artists that are still, or not still at, but in Blue Elephant, and talk a little bit about their work that people can see on September 5th. And then I think we're going to take a look at the video. We have one that, and you talked about kinetic motion, so I thought we'd take a look at that.
Yeah. Well, everyone's great, They're such a fantastic group there, but, like Craig Cavan, Johan Lowy. I can go on down the list, Stacy's there. That's fantastic. Sarah,
Sarah.
who's very big in community. She does a lot of community work, but along the lines of, like, I'm going to get back to what Brian said
please.
about all the objects in there, it's such a residual energy there. It's like this ghost-like quality that's what makes that history is what makes that building, And I hosted a comedy show last night, right? And one of the comedians that came in, she was a young comedian that had never been in the building before, and she was like so thankful to be there. She's like, I just responded so well to this energy. It's like I haven't been in a place like this in such a long time, and it's just a unique place, right?
Yes.
And everyone that enters the building feels that energy, and I think all those things that Brian put into it and all that is still there, and, you talked about the impact earlier, about the impact of that loss, that's truly what the loss will be, is that spirit, right?
100% agree, 100. Yeah. And that to try these kind of spaces like Blue Elephant, Artist Cooperative, they're common in Baltimore, D.C., your major cities. Like most places have artists that have gotten together and done things like that. It's rare to have it in, a place like Frederick, but it's even hard to think of Frederick in the way it was in the 90s. Like when Nick and I go over there for anything, it's I'm a stranger in a strange land. I don't even recognize Frederick.
We had one of our artists, Stacy, who's new. It's been there for about a year. She moved, her and her husband Peter moved down from Brooklyn, and one of the reasons that they kind of landed and stayed here is because of the Blue Elephant. She was searching for an artist community, and it just was perfect for them.
And for the uninitiated, like, the one thing that you can do at Blue Elephant is have conversations, what's called cross-pollination. Our original group, there were so many different mediums. And I think that in our group, people would stop thinking of themselves as, I'm a photographer, I'm a painter, I'm an artist, right? Yeah. Brian, let's take a look at, this is a video that you sent us. Is this something is this part of the show that you guys have on the 5th?
Yes, this
awesome.
This is, we'll let it play for a second. Okay.
Beautiful, man. Badass.
Sitting in silence, wondering what to do. Got myself angering over you.
I can only say, like, it's such a strange experience for me because I don't make art, but I can look at that and I can see how you went from, does that make sense? Like this, and to see the movement and the motion and, so many different things come to mind, but I love to see how you've incorporated that, What would you like to say about this installation?
Oh gosh, there's so many layers in that piece. There's pieces in the background. The specific piece that you see with the unicycle was designed for our three-man show. Originally, it was going to be at a different space. That space wouldn't have worked nearly as well as where we ended up. So that piece in the center of the Blue Elephant is going to mean a lot to me, but it's also just going to be really great to see. But the character, the one-legged guy riding the the unicycle that happens to be Stephen Dobbins' son-in-law's moped unicycle that he was throwing away, and I scavenged it instead of making a piece for this. That character was a character named Washington. That was a famous character in my art that we showed at the Millennium Show. It was this taxidermy deer with bandaged up in an army uniform, and he's made his return. That piece was famously called Washington Crosses the Delaplane, which was a pun on Washington Crosses the Delaware, and the Delaplane was kind of the establishment that we were kind of trying to break away from. But I love being a part of the Delaplane as well now, but that's where we were at that age. Anyway, this
fought
character,
my battles with the Delaplane, but same thing. I have respect for it.
Anyway, this piece originally had that guy in a full army suit holding like a kind of rifle thing, and I sent it to Steve, and he said it's too much. You got to strip it down, and he was right. I stripped it down to its minimum. Now it's a pair of cut-off army shorts and one leg, riding a unicycle with a Puma. We can talk more about what that means maybe later or at the show, but there's also a piece behind it that's spinning that's kind of a direct connection to the work I've been doing the last couple of years. I work at Frederick High in a Learning for Life program that Stephen was responsible for shaping over the years, and my role was to go out in the community with these students and teach them life skills, landscaping, cleaning. Been a great pleasure, and that specific piece is a vocational instructional kit. So it's these black and white photographs of all the different vocations that you could learn.
Okay.
And the cool thing about it is they're very multicultural. There's got everyone represented, and on the back there's a description of the job, and kind of giving our current climate around immigration and ICE. This piece means a lot to me, and it's kind of like this beautiful collage of who we are and who we should be celebrating. And so there's a lot going on in these thematically that maybe not jump right out, but I look forward to talking to people about these in the show. So.
Yeah. Let's go ahead, Nick. We've got a couple more images I wanted to bring up. This is from Blue Elephant Art Center artists exhibited. This one was reviewed by the Washington Post in 2003. Professor Mendez, Jason Swafford, Sonia Evanesco, Brian Slagle, Steve Dobbin, Don Ramirez, Annie Ashovich. Today's actually Annie Ashovich's birthday. Happy birthday, Annie Ashovich. And William Wooby, that was the director of Millennium Art Center. The show got a nice review in the Washington Post. he called me a deconstructionist. But I wanted to share. You can bring that down, Nick. Before that review, I sent Michael O'Sullivan a blow-up sex doll for Christmas after our first review, and I have this memory of my grandmother, right, my 80-year-old grandmother, wrapping up the sex doll to send to O'Sullivan. Yeah. So my first review with him was a mixed review, but my second one was a much more positive. Of course, you remembered the sex doll. He thought it was funny and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go to Tony, and Tony, why don't you share with our audience, what are you displaying that day? Do you have, like, in your studio, in your space?
Yeah.
And tell me the themes that you're working with.
Well, I've spent the last 6 months trying to sell our house, so I've been kind of preoccupied with that. So we're looking forward to starting a new series. But I do a lot of large-scale paintings, 6 foot by 7 foot.
Big.
Big and
Like you. Yeah, big.
a lot of different layering of imagery, deconstruction, and a lot of ghost-like imagery and those kind of things. But I'll have a couple paintings there.
Good.
But smaller works that I've done when I had time. But yeah.
No, it sounds exciting. I look forward to seeing your work. Nick, let's bring up our next image. Brian, I want you to go ahead and talk about the 3 artists that are exhibiting on the September show and talk about the picture.
Okay, yeah, right there in the chair, that's Stephen Dobbin. To his right is Jeff Bolander, and that's me up in the truck rocking the same Picasso shirt I am right now. Same hat as well.
Did you say Guernica?
Guernica, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's always been one of my favorite Picasso pals. I love Picasso.
My absolute favorite. I
didn't come to him until much later in my artistic life, but I was always happy I made it.
He's one of those artists that my daughters have taught me you got to maybe respect the art, not the artist, because he wasn't such a great guy, sometimes. But I saw that painting in person a few years ago in Spain, and it was awesome. Back to the truck there. We did a last-minute Thursday afternoon. I was sitting in class with Stephen, and I said, we're going to rent a truck tomorrow, and we're going to turn it into a gallery and have a show on Saturday. And it worked out. That was in front of the Blue Elephant. I called Tony and said, hey, can we park in front of the loading dock? Mm-hmm. And he said, cool. And it was a great experiment. We learned a lot. I want to do it more. I think for me, this is kind of what I'm going to lean into in the new Frederick scene. When you can't have an affordable art space, there are these guys in New York City. I think it's called the U-Haul Art Fair. They set up outside of the fancy Armory show, and they rented 20 U-Hauls and did the U-Haul Art Fair. Mm-hmm. And as a kind of statement like, hey, we can't all be a part of that game, but we can create our own affordable space right outside. So this was fun. And we learned a lot, like I said. But, yeah, these are the 3 guys that'll be showing with us September 5th. And it's going to be a great mix of different styles.
Now, Jeff Bolander and his wife, it's Kristen, right? Kristen Bolander.
Correct.
I think I'd forgotten her name on the episode with Andrea. They have both been in Frederick for a very long time, post-undergraduates, both. I think she's an educator at Hood. What does Jeff do?
Jeff, I believe, is a graphic designer by trade. Mm-hmm. Jeff and I have known each other for, throughout the Blue Elephant years. We were not super close as far as personal interactions. We have shown together. Mm-hmm. I've always admired his work. I was very influenced early on by Robert Rauschenberg. I see a lot of that style that Jeff utilizes as well.
Okay, and we have one more video I wanted to play. Go ahead and play this one out, Nick, and then I got a couple. I want to talk to you about this one.
This is not normal.
Hold on. I do know that this is not normal. Is this? It's not.
This is not normal. I want you to know it's not normal.
isn't normal.
We have tendency sometimes to think it's normal.
No.
It's not normal. It's not normal.
You
Nick,
turned it
you can
off,
go ahead and bring
everything
that
you
one
were
down.
doing was gone.
Let's talk a little bit. One, I remember you with the camcorder, and I remember, these early experiments into the moving image for you back in the 90s. So share with the audience what that experience is like and what has drawn you to doing something like this is essentially like an avant-garde short film.
Yeah, I've always been drawn to stop action. Earlier we were talking about the necessity or the found objects being an economic thing, right? So my stint into animation, my first film actually was a Blue Elephant stop action that we used to take to the colleges and stuff. So it was
Remember that.
basically I had a video camera, VHS, that you could hit start and stop, and it would record chronologically, which you can't really do anymore. So it was about the low budget animation, and this particular movie went through the studio, and we did a little piece on each artist, and it was amazing. I wish we had it. It's a shame, and we put a Massive Attack soundtrack to it. We showed it at Shepherd College. I remember projecting it, and someone had to hit play on the on the tape recorder. We didn't have any technology or editing. Anyway, over the years, I've fiddled with that a little bit. I made a film for the 72-hour film festival, which Clark Klein started with some friends, and I want to give a big shout to them. Their recent film festival is the future of Frederick, so that's very exciting. Anyway, so this lately, I was inspired by some guys on the internet that I've seen projecting big images into cities, lots of political imagery and stuff, and it was like, really, that's cool. That's kind of rogue graffiti without destroying anything. So I started messing around with animating, and I didn't really have any animation tools. So I knew how to use Photoshop, so I kind of did some research and found out how to do basic animation with Photoshop, and this is kind of where it landed. Particularly politically driven here, and as my T-shirt, I've always been interested in the artists that use their art for change and political, not propaganda, but just telling their truth, and and as a voice. I think I was kind of driven with the Blue Elephant. As a group, we always kind of had something to say. It wasn't necessarily just about hanging art up and getting patted on the back. So this is my attempt at understanding and getting out some of the emotions I have around some things happening in the world.
Yeah, see, I understand that. I like that. Let me go, Tony, before we bring in Miss Lauren. What is the discussion amongst the artists directly involved and directly impacted with the closure? What are you guys, in your most optimistic, what's the scenario?
Best case scenario is January. Worst case scenario, right? We're done in January. They said that's when they wanted to start the renovation or whatever they're going to do. So we're all kind of scrambling for space. There's a couple options. Nothing's concrete as yet. We'd love to stay together as a group, but
Right, that's my question.
like I said, it is a special group, and the history of that group. We're trying to carry on. The legacy, and but it's hard in Frederick to try to find, like Brian said, affordable space. It's just, especially as a large group. We'd love to include NOMA as a part of that.
Yes.
They're sort of like our sister.
Yeah.
But space is an issue, especially in Frederick, where everything's a condo or,
Yeah. Let's go ahead, Nick, and bring Lauren in. I think this is a perfect segue.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask Laura to spend some time, talk to the audience, and introduce herself. Hey, how are you? It's good to see you.
Hey.
Everyone want to say hi. We got Brian in studio, Tony, Mel. Lauren,
How's it going?
Good to see you.
I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself to the uninitiated with exactly who you are and what you do in Frederick, Maryland, and then I want to hear some of your thoughts on the closure of Blue Elephant.
A lot of thoughts on the Blue Elephant. So I'm Lauren LaRocca, and I've been covering the art scene in Frederick for the better part of 20 years. Um, I started covering the arts for the Frederick News Post back in 2006, 2007, and then a few years after that became the editor of 72 Hours, the weekly arts and culture guide. So I was really immersed in the art scene, the local art scene, the Blue Elephant from that period of like 2007 to 2011 when I was writing. Now I'm mostly finding stories and assigning them and just conceptualizing the 72 hours every week. But there's been a lot of change, obviously, over those past 15, 20 years across the board in
Yes.
Frederick and including the arts community.
What is your thoughts on with Tony? You said 40 to 50 artists roughly are being displaced. I'm not even sure the term I wanted to use, but just the intellectual archive. Like you've lost this heart of thought, countless conversations, like the term we use, cross pollination, where artists of different genres, of different mediums get together and they're sharing ideas. And, there's such an incredible opportunities, creative opportunities that come from all of that interaction between older artists, younger artists, sharing, knowledge of film, this, that, and the other with people that don't have that kind of. So that was one of my things that I see being lost, and I want to hear your insight on what you think is Frederick is losing by losing this space by Blue Elephant closing.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. I think it's like heartbreaking. It's hard for me to even think about it, to be honest. And I know it's happening soon. The last I heard, artists need to be out by December.
January, I
I don't
think.
know if
Yeah.
you talked about that earlier, but I mean, I've just always seen the Blue Elephant as the heart of the local arts community. I mean, I'm not saying, it gets the best exhibitions and, like Delaplane and Hood bring in some like really great shows. As do, I mean, there's a lot of galleries, but it's like the creative hub, the nexus, the community, like you mentioned, cross pollination. I don't know anywhere else in Frederick where you have that. Even, there were the FAC studios for a while in the center of town. I think that's now moved. I think there are still studios there, and maybe Patty Hurwitz is running that. I'm not sure. Or Volta Visions. There's Artspiration. These are newer places, and they seemed more. How do I say it? Just didn't have that community feeling of artists across multiple disciplines, filmmakers, musicians, writers, performance artists, like not just visual artists. Like I just saw Blue Elephant as a place for everyone, and that was what made it so special. And I mean, also, it goes without saying the affordability of it, especially for young artists. It was kind of the only option in town to have a small studio space or a shared space that was just a few $100s, something like that you could afford with another artist or alone. Um, and I just don't know. I mean, I know artists are talking about looking for another space where they can all be together, or a lot of them can be together, but I just don't think you can replace the Blue Elephant I mean, I don't know what else to
No,
say.
no,
Like
no.
it's
No, I think your words are, I think all of us concur. Yeah. I think it's irreplaceable. I was saying earlier, one of my fears is that, a year after it closes, that it's forgotten about except by people like us. I hope that we can build some momentum. That's what I was hoping with this show. And for there to be something that comes after Blue Elephant that kind of helps keep that spirit alive. I thought we would, if you guys want, we'll close with some of I wanted to look at the Blue Elephant sign, number 6, real quick. And I'm going to ask each one of you guys to share some of your memories about Blue Elephant. Brian, I'll start with you. You painted this, right?
I did.
You
Yeah,
did.
that sign was great.
And that hung for the first, how long did that sign?
I don't really remember. I think there might have been some issue with the historic district. I know we had to hang it from like some random screws inside the bathroom, so it wasn't permanent. But eventually, it was replaced with this sign that's currently there that
Yeah,
Jason and I built in his downstairs studio. Yeah, that brings back a lot of memories.
I'll ask Tony, how did you get introduced to Blue Elephant? And then I'm going to give the same question to Lauren.
Yeah,
You can go ahead and bring that down, Nick. Bring her back up.
When I got back from graduate school, I was just looking for space, and then I ended up being at the Castle building for a long time, and
I was in the Castle building.
Yeah.
that was quite the experience.
That's
I'll leave it at that. And then later in life, after working forever and doing the career and family thing, I reconnected with love of my life, and she pushed me back into art, where I needed to be. And shout out to Mary Beth. And ever since 2014, we've been at the Blue Elephant. And my story, I love this. I don't know if you have a picture of the other sign. I have a great story about that.
We have that at the end, I think.
Yeah, so I have a great story about that. It fell down during a storm, and we lost it for maybe a year or two. And then I was walking down the alley near Brian's house, and it was on a fence. So we all went back and stole it and reassembled it, repaired it, and we hung it up. It's currently there now. So
That's awesome.
I thought that was like a pirate move, for us. So.
Lauren, how were you introduced to Blue Elephant? How did you end up there for the first time?
I remember it vividly, actually. So I was just starting out covering the art scene, and I didn't really know anything about Frederick. I didn't know anyone there, and so I was always just looking for flyers or anything I could find. There wasn't even much of an internet at that point. I mean, I don't think there was even Facebook really at the time, 2006, 2007. So the old Downtime Cafe had a flyer for like a Blue Elephant show. I was like, oh, I could write about this, because I had to find like 5 or 6 stories a week. And I remember walking from the old News Post building on East Patrick Street up like whatever it is, 6 or 7 blocks in the heat, and then going up the stairs. Like I had no idea like what to expect. I was just walking to like check it out, and there were a few people there. I know Mike Mendez was there. I met him. I met Chris Bransom, who was just kind of like starting to curate shows there at that time. And I just felt like I could exhale, like, oh, I found my people. Like I just immediately felt a sense of belonging. I don't know how else to explain it. And so that's when, I really started going to all the shows at that time and for the next few years, before it became the Griffin and that whole changeover. But yeah, my first memory was just a hot, sweaty day and meeting artists in their studios and just talking.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I do need to
Sure.
credit Sarah for helping me get the studio, because we were living on Church Street, and I opened my door.
Say her last name.
Arani Hempel.
Okay.
And we were living on Church Street, and I opened the door, and she's standing there, and we were starting to talk, and we ended up going to undergrad in a similar location in Pennsylvania, and we're just having a conversation, and we said that we were both artists, and she's like, "Oh, well, you need to get a studio at the Blue Elephant," and that's sort of my segue to the Blue Elephant.
If Tony's jumping in giving credits,
Yeah.
I want to also, like I was at the beginning of the Blue Elephant, and I was there 10 years. There's 20 years after me, and I think a lot of times when we discuss the Blue Elephant, we go back to the original times, but there's been so many people through there, and anything I've written about the Blue Elephant, I try to name people, but there's just so many.
Yeah.
And, like, today we were naming people, and we didn't name Richard Schellenberg, and he's
there for
fairly
important part. Yeah.
And Deborah Winham, I was sitting outside the Blue Elephant yesterday talking to her, and it's just,
Sorry,
I hate trying to name people because there was just so many, but the cross-pollination thing was amazing. And we had Winnie Cruz, who was 16, Paul Tooley, who was a scientist at Dietrich, and said, "I'm going to learn how to watercolor paint," and all of a sudden he's a master. And then he said,
Still number 8, if you don't mind, real quick. Still number 8.
Oh, still 8.
8, still number 8. You mentioned the original group. There's Winnie Cruz, your brother Kevin Slagle, Professor Michael Mendez, who teaches at Shepherd, Chrissy Charbonneau, Don Ramirez, she was Kim back then, but Ananda, Mama Becky Griffin, who, Lauren, I wanted to in one of our conversations, you asked about the connection with Frederick's Underground Music. Andy McCutcheon is Becky McCutcheon's nephew, right? So the skeptics, I've always believed that Becky was able to see the value of art in her community and directly in her family, which gave her I can do this. Matt Gemmell. Let me get them all, because last time I missed the names. And then Brian Slagle and...
the top center there is Brent Mitchell, my brother-in-law, who was a member for a little while.
Paul Tooley, Sarah Knox, and Kelly Cornelius and Jason. Unfortunately, Jason Swafford wasn't pictured in this. The original artist, the first year with Blue Elephant. Go ahead and bring Lauren back up. So I guess we'll close with this I agree with everyone that it's a horrible loss for Frederick. It's a horrible loss for the larger region. That's the one thing. Like, Frederick City affects a much larger region. Academically, there's colleges, universities, everything fairly close to Frederick. I hope that the artists involved, and I hope the arts community can see the value with Blue Elephant, and something similar at some point comes down the road. So, Lauren, anything that you want to say before we close this out?
You want to look at the webpage?
We'll do that at the very end. I'll let Lauren share her thoughts, and then we're gonna the webpage that you manage, the new Blue Elephant.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Lauren, share your deepest thoughts here. How do we make this? Yeah. How can we make this a positive? How does this?
I'll just say this for my little piece of this, because I do feel like I have a responsibility. I've had it for years to archive and document the arts culture in Frederick. So I do plan to do a pretty extensive documentation of the Blue Elephant. I know it's not going to show what's transpired over decades. But at least I'm just going to try to do my part. It's probably going to be like a series of stories and photo essays that I'm planning this fall with the artists in the studios there now, and interviewing past members and stuff like that. But just like for public record, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just feel like everything else is out of my hands.
Yeah.
But I can at least do my part there.
No, and I think you've used and I want to thank the Frederick News Post because they've actually been great with covering the story and very fair about it.
Yeah, I want to quickly.
Please.
I want to quickly thank Lauren as well because she's covered our shows a lot, and I remember like sitting in my garage in the heat and Jason Tinney, and we had swinging bridge shows, and she's kind of been like our in-house writer journalist, and she had a space there as well. We appreciate you, Lauren, and I'm glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Tony, what would you like to say?
No, I think we're going to still continue to be positive and try to carry the momentum forward, like the legacy of the Blue Elephant. I think it was really critical to all of us that are there that we honor the past and we continue that momentum to be all inclusive and be a place where artists of all ages and can work out their craft and try to carry that to the next place. The same energy and the same thought. In the end, we are the people that created that, and hopefully we can all continue that and be a part of the community and make an impact.
Yes. Nick, let's go ahead and bring up the one you were talking about, the Facebook.
Yeah.
This is the sign that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's the
original
sign. Yeah.
And Tony, you helped to put this Facebook page together.
Yeah,
the new Blue
I did
Elephant.
all this. Yeah.
And I want to encourage everyone to follow it, to hit it up.
Thank you.
And you'll be able to follow this journey as it goes past Blue Elephant, whatever activities that are going on, and many different Blue Elephant artists post in the group.
Yeah.
So it's public access, the Blue Elephant, new Blue Elephant Art Center public group on Facebook, and a great source of information. So please, everyone, follow this Blue Elephant and come out on September 5th, see Brian's work at the Delaplane Visual Arts Center in the day, and come and look at the Blue Elephant that evening. Come and see. I'm hoping we get a lot of old faces that day. That would be wonderful. It's a great day trip, and to all the artists involved, we support you guys. We hope to have more shows like this as this thing moves forward. And of course, in 98, 30 years ago, I had no clue that I was going to be involved in something that would affect so many people and go on for so long. Yeah. The principles that we advocated for back then, the most important one being that artist controlled, the artist cooperative, and like you said, the young people, that we were young then, we're young radicals. And I really think that that's what helped to make the space so amazing. And it is an amazing physical space. So any clothing thoughts that you three would like to share? I'll start with Lauren and I'll go to Tony. I'll give Brian a minute to process here.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's the physical space or place. It's like, if you build it, they will come. I mean, I love the idea of having this Facebook group where wherever the group migrates, people can still stay connected. There is something to be said for that. And I don't know. I hope there's some form of the Blue Elephant, not just the legacy, but of the spirit of it that finds another home.
Yeah, I agree. Tony?
Yeah, I'd just like to say to everybody, we have brunch every Friday at 10 a.m. Come have conversations. It's a great place to hang out and talk with other artists. We started about 10 years ago, before COVID. Sarah brought in a box of donuts, and her and I split a donut, and I declared from this point on at 10 a.m. on Fridays is Donut Day. So it kind of grew into something that is really cool, and it's just a great place to have community and have a conversation with other artists and just kind of hang out and be cool, So,
Brian?
Yeah, I'm amazed that this thing is still here. It's sad, bittersweet. Not a lot of sweet. It's bitter that it's leaving. I would be remiss to not give a big shout out to Becky Griffin, yes. Mama Beck. Her vision, her risk. I don't know if you ever guys heard the story of how it got to be named the Blue Elephant. but if that was written anywhere. So she inherited some money from her uncle Earl, and she decided, I'm going to buy this old rundown building. It was white, painted white at the time, and she described it as her white elephant, which is like this metaphor for a gift from the king. He gives you an elephant, and it's an honor and it's a precious thing, but you can't afford to feed it and maintain it. So this like little tiny, like kind of radical in its own way thing, she painted it blue, and she called it the Blue Elephant. And I just think that little gesture kind of sparked this amazing creativity that was always there. And there was people that came before us, Becky's family, Jacker and BK. They were doing the grunt work, and my brother somehow got together with Becky and invited me in, and Jason came back from Arizona, and this just organic thing that happened. People just walked up the stairs and like joined the family, and you can't recreate that. It will be recreated somewhere. These cycles happen. So it's sad to see it go. The memories didn't go anywhere. The things we didn't go anywhere. That we influenced people, hopefully, and I'm happy to see the music scene growing underground. This film festival, these guys are killing it. So it's just going to change. The energy hasn't left. There's finally an amazing restaurant on the corner of 5th and Market that Icky Ben is like, why couldn't we have had that when we were there? Right. That's what happens. But anyway, North Market's finally happening like we always wanted it to. It just, the consequences of gentrification are we get pushed out, but we also kind of started it. So it's a full circle moment that I'm just glad to be a part of. I'm glad to be here with you, Don. You were a big part. I'm glad to be here with Tony. If we talked about the lack of degrees of separation in Frederick with the Griffins and Tony, and we could go on forever, but thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Frederick is an amazing place. It has an amazing music and art scene. I really want that to continue to thrive. Lauren, thank you for all your support that you give to the arts. We've interacted with you several times with the channel, so it's always been incredible. And I wish you, your traveling is awesome. I love it. I love to see it. And always be safe out there. It can be dangerous out there. We know that, So I think you're doing some exciting stuff. I wish I could join you. Fuck, I got to see New Mexico once. I would love to see New Mexico again. So, thank all three of you guys for being on the show. And again, encourage everyone to come out September the 5th, come check out the Blue Elephant, 4A West 5th Street, in downtown Frederick, Maryland. So I think that's it. Nick, you can go ahead and close this out.